I never thought I'd be the kind of person to completely cut off my own flesh and blood. Family was everything to me, until they decided my financial independence wasn't worth respecting. When my adult children simplified my investment portfolio, without my knowledge, they didn't just reorganize some apps on my phone. They violated a boundary that cost them millions. This is the story of how I went from being the overindulgent mother who funded their every whim to the woman who redirected her entire estate to strangers. Sometimes the most expensive lesson is the one you never saw coming. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The day I discovered what Ryan and Amanda had done started like any other Tuesday. I was 62, recently widowed after losing my husband, of 35 years, and still adjusting to life on my own. My morning routine was sacred: coffee on the porch, crossword puzzle, and then 30 minutes reviewing my investment portfolio. I'd built a substantial nest egg over decades of careful planning, something my late husband Marcus and I had prioritized even when money was tight. I settled into my home office, opened my laptop, and tried to log in to my brokerage account. The password didn't work. I tried again, still nothing. Frustrated, I reached for my phone to use the app instead, but it wasn't where I usually kept it. In fact, none of my financial apps appeared on the home screen. Instead, there was a single new app called Family Finance, with a sickeningly cute logo of interlocked hands forming a heart. I didn't remember downloading this. My stomach tightened. As I clicked on it, "Welcome, Sophia. Your family has simplified your financial management. All your accounts are now in one place." The cheerful message made my blood run cold. I hadn't authorized this. I hadn't asked for simplification. I tapped through the app, growing increasingly alarmed. My individual stock holdings had been consolidated into mutual funds. My cryptocurrency investments, which had performed exceptionally well, were completely gone. Several of my higher-risk but high-performing investments had been liquidated and moved into conservative bonds. With trembling fingers, I called Ryan, my 38-year-old son who worked in tech and had always been dismissive of my old-school approach to managing my own money. "Oh, hey, Mom," he answered casually. "How's the new app working out? Pretty slick, right?" "Ryan," I struggled, to keep my voice steady. "What have you done to my accounts?" "We streamlined everything for you. Amanda and I have been worried sick about you managing all those complicated investments. Dad always handled the big financial decisions, and we just thought, your father never made a financial move without consulting me first." I cut him off. "We were partners. Every investment strategy was discussed and decided together. Mom, come on. You've been making some risky choices lately. That cryptocurrency stuff is basically gambling. And those individual stocks in companies you know nothing about? It's not safe." I took a deep breath. "Ryan, I've been investing in the market since before you were born. Those risky investments have outperformed your 401k 3 years running." "That's just luck," he dismissed. "Look, Amanda and I just want to make sure you're secure. You're not exactly in your prime anymore." The condescension in his voice was the match that lit my fuse. "I want access to my original accounts restored. Today." "We can't do that, Mom. We've consolidated everything. It would be a nightmare to untangle. Besides, this is better for everyone." "Better for everyone?" I repeated. "Or better for you and Amanda?" "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm not dead yet, Ryan. And until I am, my money is mine to manage." I hung up and immediately called Amanda, my 36-year-old daughter who worked as a financial advisor. Unlike her brother, she couldn't hide behind technical ignorance. "Mom, please don't be upset," she began before I could say anything. "We were going to tell you this weekend over dinner. It was supposed to be a surprise." "A surprise? You call liquidating my assets without my knowledge a surprise? In any other context, that would be theft." "That's not fair." Amanda's voice hardened. "We're trying to protect you. Dad would have wanted us to take care of you. Don't you dare. Use your father to justify this. Marcus trusted my judgment for 35 years. He knew I was capable. But you're alone now, Amanda said softly. And you're getting older. We've seen it with our clients. Elderly parents making terrible financial decisions, losing everything to scams. I'm 62, not 92, I snapped. And I haven't lost a dime to scams. In fact, my portfolio has grown 12% in the last year. Can your clients say the same? Silence on the other end. Amanda, I want control of my accounts back. Now. It's not that simple, Mom. We've set up a family trust. It's actually better for tax purposes and a trust? My voice rose. You put my money into a trust without my consent? It's still your money. We're just helping manage it. Ryan and I are co-trustees along with you. The room seemed to spin. Who authorized this? More silence, then a small voice. We used the power of attorney documents you signed last year after Dad died. I remembered those papers. They were supposed to be for emergency situations, if I became incapacitated, not for my fully capable present self. This is a grotesque abuse of those documents, and you know it, I said, my voice deadly calm now. I'm calling Lloyd. Lloyd Henderson had been our family attorney for decades. Mom, please, let's just talk about this rationally, Amanda pleaded. We did this because we love you. No, I said firmly. You did this because you don't respect me. There's a difference. I ended the call and sat in my office, staring at the family photos on my desk. There was Ryan graduating from Stanford, Amanda at her wedding, both of them with their father and me on our last vacation together before his heart attack. The perfect family. Or so I had thought. Lloyd was appropriately outraged when I explained the situation. They've overstepped significantly, Sophia. That power of attorney was for incapacity, not for them to take control while you're perfectly capable. Can we undo it? Yes, but it might take some legal maneuvering. They've created a bit of a mess. I'll need to review exactly what they've done. It took 3 weeks of legal wrangling, but Lloyd managed to unravel the trust and restore my accounts to my sole control. The process was expensive and exhausting, requiring signed affidavits from my doctor confirming my mental competence and threatening letters from Lloyd to the financial institutions that had allowed this to happen without proper verification. Throughout this process, Ryan and Amanda alternated between defensive justification and wounded innocence. They couldn't seem to understand why I was so upset about their help. They genuinely believed they were doing what was best for me, and perhaps for themselves as the eventual heirs to my estate. The final straw came during a family dinner I had arranged, hoping to clear the air once my accounts were restored. I'd spent the day cooking Marcus's famous pot roast, hoping familiar comfort food might ease the tension. I understand you thought you were helping, I began carefully after we'd settled at the dining table. But I need you both to understand why your actions were so hurtful. Ryan rolled his eyes. Mom, we've been over this a dozen times. We were trying to protect you. From what exactly? I asked. From my own judgment? From independence? From yourself? Amanda interjected. Mom, you invested $15,000 in a virtual reality startup last year. Do you even know what VR is? I set down my fork. That startup was acquired by Microsoft 3 months ago. My $15,000 is now worth $62,000. They exchanged glances. That's just dumb luck, Ryan muttered. No, it was research, I corrected. I read about their patented haptic technology in a trade journal, the same journal I've subscribed to for 20 years. But you also lost money on that restaurant chain investment, Amanda pointed out. Yes, I did. That's how investing works. You win some, you lose some. But overall, my portfolio has consistently outperformed the market average. Until it doesn't, Ryan said. What happens when you make a catastrophic mistake? Who's going to bail you out? I looked at him steadily. I don't expect to be bailed out, I've never asked either of you for financial help, have I? No, but you've asked me, I said quietly. Ryan, who paid the down payment on your house? Amanda, who covered the cost when you went back for your MBA? They both looked uncomfortable. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. I've supported both of you generously your entire lives. I paid for your education, helped with major purchases, funded your dreams, and I've never once complained about it because I love you and wanted you to have opportunities. This is different, Amanda insisted. How? How is it different? I leaned forward. Is it because now it's my dreams, my choices that are in question? You're being dramatic, Ryan sighed. It's just money. It's not just money. I slammed my hand on the table, making them both jump. It's respect. It's autonomy. It's trust. We do respect you, Mom, Amanda said. But you're not as sharp as you used to be. The other day, you couldn't remember your neighbor's name. Bob moved in 3 weeks ago, and having a senior moment doesn't mean I can't manage my own finances. We just think a professional should be handling things now that Dad's gone, Ryan added. I stared at him. I am a professional. I was a financial analyst for 30 years before I retired. That was a long time ago, Amanda said gently. Things change. Something inside me broke at that moment. The careful restraint I'd been maintaining shattered. You know what? You're right. Things do change. I stood up and walked to my office, returning with 2 envelopes. I handed one to each of them. What's this? Ryan asked. The details of your inheritance, I said calmly. I've had Lloyd restructure my will and estate plan. They opened the envelopes. Inside each was a single page with a number at the bottom. $100. This is a joke, right? Amanda's voice quavered. No joke. You've made it abundantly clear that you don't trust my financial judgment, so I've decided to relieve you of any concern about my estate. You'll each receive $1, enough, to confirm this was intentional and not an oversight. Mom, you can't be serious. Ryan's face had drained of color. I'm deadly serious. The rest of my estate, approximately $4 million at current valuation, will go to the Women's Financial Education Foundation. They help women who've been financially abused or controlled learn to manage their own money. This is insane, Amanda was shaking. You're punishing us for trying to help you. No, I corrected her. I'm responding to your lack of respect with a consequence you'll understand. We'll contest the will, Ryan threatened. You're welcome to try. Lloyd has extensive documentation of my mental competence, as well as detailed records of your unauthorized actions with my accounts. Additionally, I've recorded our conversation today with your explicit statements about my mental capacity. Their shocked faces told me they hadn't noticed the small recording device on the bookshelf behind them. I hadn't planned to use it this way originally. I'd set it up to record family stories, something Marcus and I had talked about doing before he died. Now it served a different purpose. You've been planning this, Amanda whispered. No, I said sadly. I've been responding to your actions. There's a difference. So that's it? Ryan stood up. After everything, you're just cutting us off? I'm establishing a boundary you seem incapable of respecting any other way. You'll regret this, Amanda warned, tears streaming down her face. When you're old and alone, you'll wish you hadn't pushed away the only family you have. I already regret many things, I admitted. I regret that I raised children who believe they have the right to control me. I regret that you see me as an incompetent burden rather than as a person deserving of dignity. Most of all, I regret that it's come to this. They left in a fury of slammed doors and squealing tires. I sat alone at my dining table, the pot roast, growing cold, wondering if I had gone too far. But every time I considered backing down, I remembered the feeling of violation when I discovered what they had done. Some lines, once crossed, changed relationships forever. I knew they thought I would cave eventually. They expected the lonely widow to come crawling back, begging for their attention, willing to pay any price, including her autonomy, to keep her family close. They were wrong. The weeks after the confrontation dinner were eerily quiet. No calls, no texts, no impromptu visits from either Ryan or Amanda. I told myself this was fine, that the silence was better than their condescension. But the truth was, the emptiness of my house had never felt so oppressive. I threw myself into reclaiming my financial identity. The damage they'd done was extensive. Beyond the consolidated accounts and liquidated investments, they had changed the contact information on everything to their own emails and phone numbers. Recovery notifications went to them, not me. If I hadn't caught it when I did, I might have been locked out of my own financial life indefinitely. My friend Diane insisted on taking me to lunch about 3 weeks after what I now thought of as the inheritance dinner. We met at our favorite bistro downtown, where the staff knew us well enough to have our usual table ready. "You look terrible," she said bluntly as we settled in. Diane had never been one to soften blows. "Thanks," I muttered. "Just what every woman wants to hear. I'm serious, Sophia. You've lost weight and not in the congratulations kind of way." "Are you sleeping?" I sighed. "Not really. I keep waking up at 3 a.m. wondering if I've made a horrible mistake." Diane's eyes narrowed. "By standing up for yourself? That's not a mistake. That's survival. But they're my children. Maybe I overreacted." "Overreacted?" Diane set down her water glass with enough force to make the ice cubes rattle. "They essentially performed a financial coup. They used legal documents meant for emergencies to hijack your life while you were still grieving Marcus." When she put it that way, my anger reignited. They just can't see me as anything but an extension of their father, as if I had no financial identity except through him. "It's so common," Diane nodded. "Remember Joan Peterson? When Tom died, her sons tried to put her in assisted living and sell her house. She was only 59 and in perfect health. What happened? She threatened to adopt her gardener and make him her sole heir. Suddenly, her sons remembered she was a competent adult." Diane grinned wickedly. I couldn't help laughing. "That's extreme." "So, is what you did," she pointed out. "But sometimes extremes are necessary. The question is, what happens now?" That was the question I'd been avoiding. "I don't know. Ball's in their court, I guess. And if they never come around?" The thought made my chest tighten. "Then I learned to live with that." "Sophia Thompson, martyr." Diane rolled her eyes. "Look, you can stand your ground without turning to stone. Why don't you call them? Not to cave, but to check in." I considered her suggestion on the drive home. Perhaps there was room for reconciliation without capitulation. I was about to call Ryan when my phone rang with Lloyd's number. "Sophia, I hope I'm not interrupting," my attorney began. "Not at all. What's up?" "I've received some concerning communications. Ryan and Amanda have retained counsel. They're challenging your competency." My car suddenly felt airless. "They're what?" "They've filed a petition for guardianship, claiming cognitive impairment. They're using your erratic financial decisions and sudden personality change as evidence." "That's absurd," I sputtered. "I just had a complete physical 2 months ago. My doctor said I'm healthier than most people 15 years younger." "I know that, and we'll fight this. But I wanted to warn you. Things might get ugly. These proceedings can become very personal." By the time I arrived home, my sadness had calcified into resolve. If they wanted a fight, they'd get one. But I'd be damned if I'd play defense. The next morning, I drove to First Heartland Bank where I'd worked for 30 years before retiring. Jackson Pierce, now the CEO, had been a junior analyst when I started. He greeted me with genuine warmth. "Sophia, this is an unexpected pleasure. How are you holding up? We exchanged pleasantries before I got to the point. Jackson, I need a favor, a big one. Name it. I want to revive the Women's Investment Circle. His eyebrows shot up. The WIC? That's been dormant since you retired. The Women's Investment Circle had been my pet project at the bank, a program teaching financial literacy and investment strategies. To women, particularly those in vulnerable situations like divorce or widowhood. It had been wildly successful, but required a champion within the bank's leadership. The need hasn't gone away, I said. If anything, it's greater now. And I'm volunteering to run it again, pro bono. Jackson studied me. This feels sudden. Does it have anything to do with your kids? Small town, big gossip? He added apologetically. Partially, I admitted. But it's also about purpose. I've been adrift since Marcus died, and this situation with my children has clarified some things. For me? Such as? Such as the fact that financial independence isn't just about having money, it's about having knowledge and confidence. Too many women surrender that power, often to the men in their lives, but sometimes to well-meaning children who infantilize them after they're widowed. Jackson nodded slowly. I've seen it happen. My mother went through something similar with my sister after Dad passed. So you understand? I do. And I think reviving the WIC is an excellent idea. The bank's community outreach metrics could use the boost, honestly. But Sophia, he leaned forward. Is this just about proving something to Ryan and Amanda? I considered his question carefully. No, it's about making meaning from this mess. If my own children, one a tech executive, one a financial advisor, can't see their mother as competent, imagine how other adult children view their aging parents, especially mothers. Jackson agreed to restart the program with the bank's full support. Within days, we had secured meeting space, created a curriculum, and begun advertising. The response was overwhelming. We had a waiting list before we'd even held the first session. I threw myself into the work with renewed energy. The circle became my sanctuary, a place where my expertise was valued, my experience respected. We covered everything from basic budgeting to complex investment strategies. I shared my own story, carefully anonymized, as a cautionary tale. The women listened with horror and recognition. Many had experienced similar, if less extreme, versions of financial infantilization. One participant, Barbara, reminded me painfully of myself 3 months earlier. Recently widowed after 40. Years of marriage, adult children hovering anxiously over her financial decisions. They mean well, she defended them during a coffee break. They're just worried I'll be taken advantage of. Concern is natural, I acknowledged. But there's a line between support and control. Have they asked what you want? What would make you feel secure? Barbara looked startled. Not really. They've just told me what they think I should do. And how does that make you feel? Invisible, she whispered, like I'm already gone and they're just managing what I left behind. Her words hit me like a physical blow. That was exactly how I'd felt, invisible in my own life. I squeezed her hand. You're very much here, Barbara, and your voice matters most when it comes to your future. The Women's Investment Circle grew, beyond our expectations. We expanded to 3 sessions a week, then 5. Local media picked up the story. Former bank executive empowers widows to financial independence, read the headline in the Riverdale Gazette. They requested an interview, which I initially declined, still raw from the ongoing legal battle with my children. But Jackson persuaded me. Think of the women who need to hear this message, Sophia. Your story could help them avoid your pain, the Kai. Reporter Kelly Winters was thoughtful and thorough. She asked about my banking career, the origin of the WIC, and what had inspired its revival. I answered carefully, sharing the general situation without naming Ryan and Amanda. So this program arose partly from personal experience, she pressed. Yes, I admitted. I found myself in a position where my financial autonomy was threatened after my husband's death. It made me realize how vulnerable many women are, not just to scammers or market downturns, but sometimes to the very people who claim to love them most. The article, when published, was more powerful than I'd anticipated. It captured the essence of what we were trying to achieve, not just financial literacy, but financial dignity. My phone rang constantly the day it came out. Former colleagues, friends from church, women wanting to join the circle, and, finally, Amanda. "Mom," her voice was tight. "We need to talk." "I've been available to talk for months," I replied evenly. "Your attorney advised against it, remember? This article, it makes us sound like monsters. The article doesn't mention you at all. Everyone knows it's about us," she exploded. "Dad's business associates, our friends, they're all calling to ask what happened. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" I let the silence stretch between us. "Is that really your concern right now? How does this look to others? You're smearing our names in public." I shared my experience without naming either of you. "If you feel exposed, perhaps that says more about your actions than my words." I heard her take a deep breath. "The guardianship hearing is next week. This won't help your case." "Is that a threat, Amanda?" "It's reality, Mom. The judge will see this publicity stunt for what it is, an attempt to prejudice the court in your favor. The women's investment circle has nothing to do with our legal dispute. It's about helping others avoid what happened to me." "Nothing happened to you," she cried. "We were trying to help. By taking control without my consent. By treating me like an incompetent child. You're twisting everything, am I? Tell me, Amanda, if a husband did to his wife what you and Ryan did to me, restructured her finances without permission, locked her out of her own accounts, claimed it was for her own good, what would you call that?" Silence, because there's a term for it. Financial abuse. It doesn't stop being abuse just because the perpetrators are my children. "That's not fair," she whispered. "No, it wasn't fair. None of this has been fair. But I'm done being a victim. Amanda, I won't let you or Ryan or anyone else take my power again." She hung up. I sat heavily on my sofa, emotionally drained. I hadn't intended to be so blunt, but the truth had come pouring out. Financial abuse. The words felt both harsh and precisely accurate. The guardianship hearing approached with dreadful inevitability. Lloyd had assembled an impressive array of evidence supporting my competence: medical evaluations, testimony from colleagues, documentation of my successful investment history. But Ryan and Amanda had found 2 psychiatrists willing to suggest that my radical behavioral changes following Marcus's death indicated possible cognitive decline. "They're building a case around your new will," Lloyd explained during our final preparation session. "They're arguing that disinheriting your children in favor of a charity represents impaired judgment inconsistent with your prior values." "My prior values included respect and autonomy, which they violated," I replied. "My response is entirely consistent." "I agree, but prepare yourself. Tomorrow will be difficult. They'll try to portray you as irrational, possibly even paranoid. Let them try," I said with more confidence than I felt. That night, unable to sleep, I found myself in Marcus's home office, untouched since his death. His reading glasses still sat on the desk, a bookmark protruding from his half-finished novel. I ran my fingers over his chair, remembering countless evenings when he'd worked late while I brought him tea. "I could use your advice right now," I said to the empty room. "Our children think I've lost my mind because I won't let them control me. What would you say to them?" I could almost hear his deep laugh, see his head shake. Marcus had always encouraged independence in our children, and in me. "They're not children anymore, Soph," he would say. We raised them to fly, not to hover. Something about being in his space calmed me. I opened his desk drawer, looking for a tablet of paper, and found instead a sealed envelope with my name on it. My heart stuttered as I recognized his handwriting. With trembling fingers, I opened it to find a letter dated just 3 weeks before his heart attack. My darling Sophia, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're looking for something in my desk. I've been thinking a lot about what comes next for you, for our family. We've built a good life, haven't we? But I worry about after. Not about the money. You've always been better with that than me. Anyone who thinks you rode my financial coattails has it backwards. No, I worry about the kids. They're good people, but they've never really seen you. Clearly. They see Mom, not Sophia Thompson, the financial wizard who put them through college while outperforming the market by 3 points. They'll try to take care of you, and that's natural. But don't let them smother you. Don't let anyone dim your light or clip your wings. You've spent decades taking care of everyone else. Now is your time. Whatever you choose to do with this next chapter, travel, volunteer, start that consulting business you've talked about, do it on your terms. You've earned that right. All my love always, Marcus' tears streamed down my face. Even from beyond, he understood. He saw me, the real me, not just his wife or the children's mother. Marcus had always been my biggest advocate, and here he was, advocating for me still. I folded the letter carefully and held it to my heart. Tomorrow would be difficult, but I wasn't facing it alone. I had Marcus's blessing, Lloyd's expertise, and most importantly, my own unshakable conviction. The battle ahead wasn't just about money or even about my relationship with my children anymore. It was about every woman who'd been told she couldn't manage on her own, every widow pressured to surrender her autonomy, every mother reduced to a dependent by the same children she'd raised to independence. As I finally drifted toward sleep, a plan began forming in my mind. If Ryan and Amanda wanted a public reckoning, they would get one, but not the kind they expected. The county courthouse loomed before me, its stone facade imposing in the morning light. I clutched my leather portfolio, containing Marcus's letter, my financial records and notes for my testimony, like a shield. Lloyd met me at the steps, his usual bow tie replaced by a conservative necktie. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." Inside, the hallway bustled with the mundane machinery of justice, clerks shuffling papers, attorneys conferring in hushed tones, anxious citizens waiting for their moment before the bench. I spotted Ryan and Amanda huddled with their attorney, a sharp-featured woman in an expensive suit. Ryan saw me first. For a moment, something like regret flickered across his face before he looked away. Judge Patricia Winters's courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, more intimate, which somehow made it more intimidating. I sat at the respondent's table beside Lloyd, trying not to stare at my children across the aisle. All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Winters presiding. The judge, a black woman in her 60s with elegant silver braids, took her seat and surveyed the room. "Be seated. We're here in the matter of Thompson guardianship petition. I've reviewed the filings." Her gaze settled on me. "Mrs. Thompson, are you prepared to proceed today?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you understand these proceedings concern your alleged incapacity and the petition by your children to establish legal guardianship over your person and property?" "I understand fully, Your Honor." She nodded. "Very well. Counsel for the petitioners, you may begin." Amanda and Ryan's attorney, Ms. Pearson, approached the lectern. "Your Honor, this case is fundamentally about protection. Ryan and Amanda Thompson have witnessed alarming changes in their mother's behavior following the death of their father last year. These changes include erratic financial decisions, paranoid accusations against family members, and vindictive actions that are grossly inconsistent with Mrs. Thompson's prior character and values. I clenched my jaw as she continued painting me as a grieving widow whose mind had unraveled, making me a danger to myself and my estate. Mrs. Thompson's irrational decision to disinherit her only children in favor of a charity, to punish them, for trying to protect her finances, demonstrates impaired judgment that requires intervention. We have expert testimony confirming that such radical behavioral changes are consistent with cognitive decline, possibly early-stage dementia. Lloyd squeezed my arm gently as I tensed. We'd anticipated this line of attack. Judge Winters interrupted. Counsel, disinheriting one's children, while perhaps unusual, is not in itself evidence of mental incapacity. Many people leave their estates to charity. Of course, Your Honor, but in context with her other behaviors, accusing her children of financial abuse for consolidating her scattered investments, exhibiting paranoia about her accounts, and making increasingly risky financial gambles, it represents a troubling pattern. Ms. Pearson called their first witness, Dr. Harold Mercer, a geriatric psychiatrist who had never met me but had reviewed extensive documentation provided by Ryan and Amanda. Based on the materials I examined, Dr. Mercer testified, Mrs. Thompson displays several concerning indicators of cognitive impairment. The personality changes, paranoid ideation, and impulsive financial decisions are consistent with frontotemporal dementia in its early stages. And would these symptoms be noticeable to family members before the patient herself might recognize them? Ms. Pearson asked. Absolutely. Family often notices cognitive changes first. The patient may lack insight into their own impairment. Lloyd's cross-examination was surgical. Dr. Mercer, have you personally examined Mrs. Thompson? No, I have not. So your assessment is based entirely on selective information provided by the petitioners? I reviewed what was provided to me. Yes. Are you aware that Mrs. Thompson recently underwent a comprehensive neurological evaluation that found no evidence of cognitive impairment? Dr. Mercer shifted uncomfortably. I was not provided with that information. Lloyd produced my medical records. Your Honor, I'd like to enter this into evidence. A complete neurological workup performed 3 weeks ago at Riverdale Medical Center, showing Mrs. Thompson's cognitive function is entirely normal for her age. The judge reviewed the records, then looked at Dr. Mercer. Doctor, would this information alter your assessment? He hesitated. It would certainly be a factor to consider. Thank you, Doctor. You may step down. Next, Ryan took the stand. Under Ms. Pearson's questioning, he described a mother transformed by grief into someone he barely recognized. She started, making these weird investments after Dad died, he testified. Cryptocurrencies she didn't understand, tech startups with no track record. Dad always handled their major financial decisions, and suddenly Mom was acting like some day trader. And what actions did you take? Ms. Pearson prompted. Amanda and I were worried she'd lose everything. We used the power of attorney Mom had signed to consolidate her accounts into a family trust. We didn't take anything. We were protecting her money from herself. How did she react? Ryan's voice hardened. She went ballistic, accused us of stealing, threatened legal action. It was completely irrational. Then she changed her will out of pure spite, disinheriting us over this tiny misunderstanding. Lloyd's cross-examination was brief but devastating. Mr. Thompson, you mentioned your father always handled their major financial decisions. Are you aware your mother was a senior financial analyst at First Heartland Bank for 30 years? Ryan blinked. Well, yeah, but Dad made the big decisions for their personal finances. Actually, let's clarify that. Lloyd produced a stack of documents. These are the investment records for your parents' joint accounts over the past 20 years. Can you tell me whose signature authorizes each major transaction? Ryan scanned the documents. Mom's signature is on most of them. And those weird investments after your father's death, the cryptocurrency and tech startups you mentioned, how have they performed? Some went up, some went down, Ryan muttered. To be precise, they've generated a return of 18.7% over the past year, significantly outperforming the market average of 7.2%. Does that sound like irrational financial behavior to you? Ryan had no answer. Amanda's testimony followed a similar pattern. She emphasized her financial expertise as justification for intervening in my affairs. As a professional advisor, I could see Mom was making classic widow mistakes. I was trying to protect her from predatory investments. During cross-examination, Lloyd was merciless. Ms. Thompson, you've testified about your concern for your mother's financial welfare. Did you consult with her before restructuring her accounts? We tried, but she wasn't receptive. So that's a no. Did you seek a medical evaluation of her capacity before deciding she couldn't manage her own finances? No, but did you consider less restrictive alternatives than taking control of all her accounts? We were trying to help, Amanda insisted, her composure cracking. He perched on the edge of the visitor's chair, reminding me of his teenage self, summoned to discuss a disappointing report card. The memory softened something in me. You look well, he offered. Thank you. You look tired. A ghost of a smile crossed his face, direct as always. Would you prefer I pretend not to notice? No. That's actually why I'm here. I'm tired of pretending. I waited, unwilling to make this easier for him. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. I've been seeing a therapist. After the court hearing, I was a mess. Angry, embarrassed, convinced you were being unreasonable. But Dr. Mitchell helped me see that this wasn't really about your finances or your will. What was it about then? Control. Fear. He met my eyes. After Dad died, everything felt unstable. The foundation of our family was gone, and I think I was terrified of losing you too. So you tried to take over my life? He winced. It sounds terrible when you put it that way, but yes. Instead of supporting your independence, I tried to manage my anxiety by controlling you. It was wrong, and I'm sorry. The apology hung in the air between us, simple but profound. Have you spoken with Amanda about this realization? I asked. Ryan grimaced. She's not in the same place yet. She still feels justified in what we did. Professional pride, maybe. It's harder for her to admit she was wrong about your financial competence when her whole career is built on knowing better than her clients. I nodded, unsurprised. Amanda had always found admitting mistakes nearly impossible. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because I miss my mother, he said simply. And because I finally understand what you were trying to teach us. This was never about the money. It was about respect. Yes, I said softly. Exactly. I'm not asking you to change your will, he hastened to add. That's your decision. I just want us to talk again, to try to rebuild. He hesitated. If that's something you want too. Did I want reconciliation? The hurt was still raw, the betrayal profound. But sitting across from my son, the boy who once brought me dandelion bouquets, the teenager who'd called from college every Sunday without fail, I found I couldn't simply shut the door. I think, I said carefully, that rebuilding might be possible, but it would need to be on new terms. Equal adults with mutual respect, not mother and child. I'd like to try that, Ryan said, his voice rough with emotion. We talked for another hour, setting boundaries and expectations. He asked thoughtful questions about the women's investment circle. I inquired about his work, his girlfriend Elise. We skirted the most painful topics by unspoken agreement, focusing instead on establishing a new foundation. As he prepared to leave, Ryan paused. Would you consider coming to dinner next week? Nothing fancy, just at my place. Elise would love to meet you. Just us? Not Amanda? Just us for now. One step at a time. I agreed, cautiously optimistic, but wary of expecting too much too soon. The dinner was awkward at first. conversation stilted as we navigated this new territory. But Elise, a pediatric nurse with a gift for disarming honesty, gradually broke through the tension. "So," she said over dessert, "Ryan tells me you completely changed your will and left him $1. I have to say, that's a power move I can respect." Ryan choked on his coffee while I burst out laughing, surprised by her directness. "Elise!" Ryan sputtered. "What?" "It's the elephant in the room. Might as well acknowledge it." She turned to me. Ryan said it was like a wake-up slap, actually. Made him realize how serious this was. "That wasn't my intent," I admitted. I was angry, hurt. It was a reaction, not a strategy. "Still worked, though," Elise observed. Got his attention. Ryan shook his head, but he was smiling. "Yes, it certainly did that." As the evening wound down, I found myself genuinely enjoying their company. Ryan walked me to my car, hesitating before asking, "Mom, would you consider something?" "What's that?" "The holidays are coming up. I know things are still fragile between you and Amanda, but would you think about Thanksgiving? It doesn't have to be at your house this year if that's too much. We could do it at my place." The thought of facing Amanda, still unrepentant, still convinced she'd been right, made my stomach knot. But the alternative was another holiday alone. "I'll think about it," I promised. The next session of the Women's Investment Circle featured a guest speaker, a neuropsychologist discussing cognitive biases in financial decision-making. Dr. Alicia Ramirez explained how our brains trick us into financial mistakes, from confirmation bias to loss aversion. One of the most powerful biases, she noted, is the curse of knowledge. When we know something, we find it hard to imagine not knowing it. This makes it difficult for financial experts to effectively communicate with novices. They assume information is obvious when it isn't. Something clicked for me. The curse of knowledge. Wasn't that exactly what had happened with Amanda? Her financial expertise had made her blind to my perspective. After the session, I asked Dr. Ramirez for resources on overcoming this particular bias. She recommended several articles and books, which I devoured over the next few days. Armed with this new understanding, I called Amanda. The conversation was brief, stilted, but she agreed to meet for coffee at a neutral location, a small cafe downtown. She arrived precisely on time, dressed in her professional uniform of tailored blazer and sleek ponytail. The armor of competence. "Thank you for meeting me," I began. She nodded stiffly. "Ryan said you two have been talking." "We have. It's been healing." Amanda fiddled with her coffee cup. "He thinks I should apologize like he did, but I'm still not sure what happened was wrong. From a financial perspective, consolidating scattered assets into a managed trust is textbook advice I give clients every day." Here it was, the curse of knowledge in action. She couldn't see past her professional framework. "Amanda," I said gently, "what works for your clients isn't necessarily right for everyone. And there's a world of difference between advising consolidation and doing it without consent. But you wouldn't listen to reason, because it wasn't your decision to make. Whether I succeeded or failed with my investments, they were mine to manage." She looked genuinely puzzled. "But why would you risk failure when we could ensure success?" "Because autonomy matters more than optimization sometimes," I explained. "Because making my own choices, even imperfect ones, is essential to my dignity." Amanda shook her head. "That's irrational from a financial standpoint. Humans aren't purely rational, especially about money. Didn't your behavioral finance courses teach you that?" For the first time, uncertainty flickered across her face. "I suppose they did." I took a different approach. "Let me ask you something. When you first started as a financial advisor, did you make mistakes?" "Of course, everyone does. And if your boss had swooped in and taken over all your clients because of those mistakes, how would you have felt?" She stiffened. "That's different. I was learning." "So am I pointed out. Learning to manage on my own after 35 years of partnership with your father. Learning to make decisions without him to discuss them with. Would you deny me that growth process? Amanda stared into her coffee. I never thought of it that way. The curse of knowledge, I said. When you're an expert, it's hard to remember what it feels like to be a learner. But everyone deserves the dignity of their own learning curve. We talked for nearly 2 hours. Unlike my conversation with Ryan, this one dug into the painful core of our conflict. Amanda defended, I explained, she counter-argued, I listened. Slowly, the rigid professional mask slipped, revealing my daughter underneath, still stubborn, still proud, but perhaps beginning to see beyond her expertise. I'm not ready to say what we did was wrong, she finally admitted. But I'm starting to understand why it hurt you so much. And I'm sorry for that hurt, even if I still believe our intentions were good. It wasn't a complete apology, but it was honest. I could work with honest. Ryan mentioned Thanksgiving, she said as we prepared. To leave? Are you considering it? I am, but I need to know we can be in the same room without relitigating the past. Amanda nodded slowly. I think we can try, for the family's sake. The weeks leading to Thanksgiving were a delicate dance of preparation, not just menu planning, but emotional groundwork. Ryan and I spoke regularly. Amanda and I exchanged cautious texts. I consulted my therapist about strategies for navigating potential tensions. When the day arrived, I drove to Ryan's house with dual offerings, a pumpkin pie and an open heart. Amanda's car was already in the driveway, heightening my nervousness. Inside, the scene was one of forced normalcy. Ryan and Elise in the kitchen, Amanda setting the table, music playing softly. We exchanged awkward hugs and plunged into the comfortable routine of holiday preparation. As we worked, the conversation gradually warmed. Amanda described a challenging client situation, seeking my perspective. I shared an insight from the investment circle's recent expansion. Ryan and Elise recounted an adventure at a pumpkin patch with her nieces. By the time we sat down to dinner, something had shifted. We weren't the family we had been before. That was gone forever. But perhaps we were the beginning of something new. Ryan raised his glass. I'd like to propose a toast to family, not just the one we were born into, but the one we choose to build every day. To family, we echoed, glasses clinking. During dessert, Amanda cleared her throat. Mom, I've been thinking about the Women's Investment Circle. Your program for women in financial transition. It's addressing a real need, one I've seen in my practice but haven't fully appreciated until recently. I waited, sensing more coming. I'm wondering if you'd be interested in collaboration. My firm could provide resources, materials, maybe guest speakers. It would expand your reach. The offer stunned me. That's generous? But why? She met my eyes directly. Because you were right about something important. Financial dignity matters as much as financial security. I'd like to incorporate that perspective into my professional approach. It was the closest Amanda would come to admitting she'd been wrong. For now, that was enough. Later, as we cleared dishes, Ryan pulled me aside. I have something to show you. He led me to his home office and pointed to his computer screen. I've been working on this for a few weeks. Tell me what you think. The screen displayed a clean, elegant website design. At the top, Thompson Family Foundation for Financial Dignity. What is this? I asked. Just an idea. What if, instead of disinheriting us completely, we created a family foundation? Your estate could fund it, and we could all serve on the board. You as chairperson, of course. The mission would be supporting financial education and autonomy, especially for vulnerable populations. I stared at the mock-up, emotions swirling. This is unexpected. It would preserve your legacy while allowing us to learn from your expertise. And frankly, it would give us a structured way to rebuild our relationship around shared values. A family foundation, I repeated, testing the concept. With clear governance and boundaries. Exactly. No one person controlling everything. Transparent decision-making, professional management, the kind of structure that protects everyone's dignity. I didn't answer immediately. The proposal needed careful consideration, not an emotional response. I'll think about it, I promised. That night, driving home from the most tentatively successful Thompson Thanksgiving in memory, I reflected on the journey of the past year. From violation to vindication, from rupture to this fragile reconstruction. Had my children truly changed? Or was this reconciliation attempt driven by inheritance hopes? Only time would tell. But perhaps the real question wasn't whether they deserved to be forgiven, but whether I wanted to live the rest of my life without them. As I turned onto my street, I realized something fundamental had shifted within me. The anger that had fueled me through the legal battle, the hurt that had justified my retribution, they were still there, but diminished. In their place was something else. The quiet confidence of a woman who had stood her ground, claimed her power, and now could choose mercy from a position of strength, not weakness. The Thompson Family Foundation idea had potential, not as a capitulation, but as an evolution. A way to transform a painful legacy into something meaningful. Something that honored not just my financial assets, but the harder-won treasure of self-determination. Tomorrow, I decided, I would call Lloyd to discuss revising my will again. Not to restore Ryan and Amanda as direct heirs, but to explore this foundation concept. With the right structure, one that protected my values while creating space for collaborative growth, it might be the bridge we all needed. After all, I reflected, pulling into my driveway, simplified didn't have to mean diminished. Sometimes, the most complex and beautiful things grew from the simplest foundations: respect, autonomy, and the courage to begin again. The winter holidays passed in a blur of cautious family gatherings, women's investment circle end-of-year events, and intense planning sessions for what was becoming the Thompson Family Foundation for Financial Dignity. Lloyd had initially raised his eyebrows at my shift in thinking. "Are you certain about this, Sophia? It's quite a departure from your previous position." "I'm not reversing my decision entirely," I clarified. "Ryan and Amanda won't inherit my assets directly, but a foundation with proper governance gives us all a constructive path forward." We spent hours structuring the organization. I insisted on several non-negotiable elements. I would serve as chairperson until my death. Board decisions would require supermajority votes, and independent ethics. Committee would resolve disputes, and the mission statement would explicitly protect financial autonomy for vulnerable populations. "This is impressive," Lloyd admitted, reviewing our draft bylaws. "You've created checks and balances that would make the Founding Fathers proud." January. We were ready to present the detailed plan to Ryan and Amanda. I hosted the meeting at my home, symbolically opening my space to them for the first time since our estrangement. They arrived together, Amanda clutching a portfolio of financial projections she'd prepared, Ryan with a refined website design and marketing materials. "Before we dive into details," I began once we'd settled in my dining room, "I want to be clear about what this foundation means and doesn't mean." They nodded, expressions attentive, but guarded. "This isn't about inheritance in the traditional sense. If you're hoping this is my way of eventually giving you control of my money, you'll be disappointed." "That's not," Ryan started, but I held up my hand. "Let me finish. This foundation will be my legacy. Its purpose is to ensure no woman faces what I faced, having her financial autonomy stripped away without consent. It's about transforming our family pain into something meaningful." I met each of their eyes. "Your participation isn't mandatory. If you're only interested because of the assets involved, I'd rather proceed alone. But if you genuinely believe in the mission, if you're willing to learn and contribute meaningfully, then I welcome your involvement. Amanda spoke first. I've been thinking a lot about what you said regarding the curse of knowledge. I've started incorporating those insights into my practice, asking clients what autonomy means to them rather than assuming optimization is always the priority. It's changed things. And I've realized, Ryan added, that what happened between us wasn't just about money. It was about seeing you as a person, not just our mother. That's a perspective I want to bring to this foundation. We spent the day reviewing governance structures, mission statements, and operational frameworks. The conversation was substantive, occasionally tense, but productive. By evening, we had a solid blueprint for the Thompson Family Foundation. As they prepared to leave, Amanda hesitated. Mom, would you consider speaking at my firm's Client Education Day next month? The topic is Financial Transitions After Loss, and I think your perspective would be valuable. The invitation represented more than a speaking engagement. It was Amanda acknowledging my expertise publicly in her professional domain. I'd be honored, I said. February brought record snowfall and the first official filing for the foundation's nonprofit status. Ryan, surprisingly, took the lead on legal paperwork, leveraging connections from his tech network to expedite the process. Amanda's client education event proved unexpectedly powerful. Rather than delivering a conventional presentation, we structured it as a moderated conversation between us, mother and daughter, presenting different but complementary perspectives on financial autonomy after loss. The key distinction, I explained to the room of mostly women, many recently widowed, is between support and control. When my husband died, I needed support. Emotional, practical, sometimes even financial. What I didn't need was someone else, making decisions for me without my input. Amanda nodded. As advisors, we often focus on optimizing outcomes, forgetting that the process itself has value. There's dignity in making your own choices, even imperfect ones. A woman in the front row raised her hand. My son keeps telling me to sell my house. Says it's too big for me now, that I should move to a retirement community. But this is my home. My memories are here. And what do you want? I asked. I want to stay, at least for now, but I worry he's right that I'm being irrational. There's nothing irrational about valuing your home beyond its financial asset value, Amanda responded, surprising me. Perhaps explore what specific concerns your son has, maintenance costs, your safety, isolation, and address those directly, rather than upending your life. Watching Amanda validate this woman's autonomy while offering practical guidance represented a profound evolution in her thinking. Later, driving home together, I told her as much. That advice you gave, about addressing specific concerns rather than surrendering decision-making, it was exactly right. She smiled faintly. I had a good teacher. Recent experience has been instructive. The hardest lessons often are. In March, I received an unexpected phone call from Barbara, the widow from my investment circle who had been working to establish healthier financial boundaries with her daughter. Sophia, the strangest thing happened. I've been asked to speak about financial autonomy at a senior center in Mapleton. Apparently, someone who attended one of your sessions recommended me. That's wonderful, I exclaimed. Will you do it? That's why I'm calling. I'm terrified. Public speaking isn't my thing. Would you consider doing it with me? Not taking over, just being there for moral support? The request touched me deeply. Of course. We could make it a conversation, like Amanda and I did at her firm's event. 2 weeks later, we stood before a room of seniors at the Mapleton Community Center. Barbara, initially nervous, grew more confident as she shared her journey from financial dependence to self-determination. The hardest part, she admitted, was standing up to my well-meaning daughter. I had to learn that loving someone doesn't mean always following their advice. A gentleman in a cardigan raised his hand. My children keep sending me these apps. that are supposed to simplify my finances, but they're not simple to me. They just make me feel stupid. Barbara nodded empathetically. Have you told them that? They say I just need to learn how technology works. Perhaps, I suggested, you could ask them to sit with you. Not to teach, but to learn how you currently manage things. Create understanding before seeking change. After the session, as we packed up materials, the center director approached. That was exactly what our members needed to hear. Would you consider making this a regular series? We could partner with other senior centers in the county. Barbara looked at me, eyes wide. What do you think? Could we? Something clicked into place, a vision of ripples expanding outward. What had begun as my personal boundary setting had influenced Amanda's professional practice, sparked Barbara's advocacy, and now might reach seniors countywide. I think it's a perfect extension of what we're building, I said. In fact, this might be a perfect pilot program for the Thompson Family Foundation's community outreach. By April, the foundation had received provisional nonprofit status. We celebrated with a small reception at First Heartland Bank, where Jackson Pierce announced the bank's founding donation of $100,000. The Thompson Family Foundation represents exactly the kind of community-focused financial empowerment we value, he told the gathered guests. We're honored to support this initiative. Ryan, who had taken a surprising interest in the operational aspects of nonprofit management, unveiled our official website and outreach materials. Amanda presented the first year's program strategy, including workshops, one-on-one counseling, and advocacy initiatives. As I watched my children confidently presenting our shared vision, emotions swelled unexpectedly. This collaboration would never have existed without the crisis that tore us apart. Our reconciliation wasn't about returning to what was, but building something entirely new from the painful lessons we'd learned. The Foundation's first official board meeting took place in my home office, where this journey had begun nearly a year earlier. Ryan, Amanda, and I were joined by 3 independent board members, a retired judge, a social worker specializing in elder care, and a community banking advocate. Before we begin, I said, I want to acknowledge how far we've come. This foundation emerged from profound conflict in our family. The fact that we're sitting here together, committed to helping others avoid similar pain, represents a transformation I wouldn't have thought possible a year ago. Judge Eleanor Washington, who had agreed to chair our ethics committee, smiled. Often the most meaningful institutions arise from personal struggle. Your family has turned private pain into public purpose. That's commendable. We proceeded through the agenda: budget approvals, program prioritization, staffing decisions. The dynamic was markedly different from our previous family interactions. Ryan deferred to Amanda on financial projections. Amanda solicited my input on outreach strategies. We all listened respectfully to our independent board members' perspectives. After the meeting, as others gathered their materials to leave, Amanda lingered. Mom, there's something I've been wanting to discuss with you. Something personal. We moved to the living room, settling into the comfortable silence of the now empty house. I've been seeing someone, she began hesitantly. His name is Daniel. He's a widower with 2 teenage daughters. That's wonderful, I said, genuinely pleased. Amanda's marriage had ended shortly before Marcus died, a double loss she'd navigated. With characteristic self-sufficiency, tell me about him. He's kind, thoughtful, a history professor at the community college. She twisted her hands in her lap. The thing is, his wife died after a long illness. The girls are still processing that loss, and now their father is dating someone new. It's complicated. I nodded, understanding instantly. You're navigating blended family dynamics. Yes, and I keep thinking about what happened with us. How easily relationships can fracture when assumptions go unchallenged and boundaries get crossed. Her voice grew quieter. I don't want to repeat those mistakes with his daughters. The vulnerability in her admission touched me deeply. What approach are you taking? I'm trying to move slowly, to listen more than I speak, to respect their space and their grief without trying to fix everything. She looked up. I'm trying to be the kind of step-parent I wish we'd had after Dad died. You mean if Marcus had remarried? No, she hesitated. I mean the kind of adult child I wish I'd been to you. Someone who respected your autonomy while still offering support. The admission hung between us, profound in its simplicity. The hardest lesson from our situation, she continued, was recognizing that good intentions don't justify controlling behaviors. I thought I was protecting you, but I was really protecting myself from the fear of you struggling or making mistakes. And now? Now I understand that your right to make your own choices outweighs my need for certainty. I'm trying to apply that understanding to Daniel's daughters. They're not children, even though they're teenagers. They deserve agency in how our relationship develops. I reached across and took her hand. That awareness puts you miles ahead of where most blended families begin. Would you be willing to meet him and the girls? Not all at once, perhaps, but eventually? I'd like that very much. The next Sunday, Amanda brought Daniel for brunch. He was tall and soft-spoken, with kind eyes and a thoughtful manner. We talked, easily, about his teaching, my foundation work, their meeting at a faculty fundraiser Amanda's firm had sponsored. Amanda speaks of you with great admiration, he said as we moved to the patio for coffee. She says you taught her the difference between helping and controlling, a distinction I've tried to maintain with my own daughters through their grief. I glanced at Amanda, surprised by how she'd framed our conflict to him. It was a difficult lesson for all of us, one I wish we'd learned more gracefully. The most important lessons rarely come easily, he observed. My late wife used to say that wisdom is just the scar tissue over our worst mistakes. The phrase lingered with me long after they'd left. Wisdom as scar tissue, permanent marks from healing wounds. The description fit perfectly with the transformation our family had undergone. That evening, I sat on my porch watching the sunset, reflecting on the year's journey. From the violation of my financial autonomy to the courthouse victory, from bitter estrangement to the foundation's creation, from broken relationships to this tentative new formation of family. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Elise and I have news. Free for dinner Friday? I smiled, typing back, looking forward to it. The path ahead wasn't perfectly clear. Our family wounds had left scars that would never completely fade. Trust, once broken, could never be entirely as it was before. But trust could be rebuilt differently, more consciously, with stronger boundaries, and greater awareness. The Thompson Family Foundation would eventually receive the bulk of my estate, much as I'd planned. But now, instead of a repudiation of my children, it represented a collaboration with them, a shared legacy built from our collective growth. As darkness settled over my garden, I thought of Marcus's letter, still kept in my bedside drawer. "Don't let anyone dim your light or clip your wings," he had written. "You've earned that right." In standing my ground, I had honored his faith in me. In creating consequences, I had protected my autonomy. And in finding a path toward reconciliation, I had discovered something equally important: the strength to forgive from a position of power, not weakness. My phone buzzed again. A photo from Amanda, Daniel's daughters Emma and Lily smiling tentatively beside her, the three of them at an ice cream shop. The caption read, "Small steps. Would love for you to meet them soon." I texted back, "I'd be honored. At their pace, no pressure." The simple exchange embodied everything we'd learned: respect for boundaries, acknowledgement of agency, patience with process. The lessons of our family crisis had extended beyond us, influencing how Amanda approached these girls, how they might one day treat their own family members, ripples expanding outward, transforming pain into purpose. I looked up at the emerging stars, feeling a sense of completion that had nothing to do with perfect resolution. Our story wasn't finished. Family. Stories never truly are. But this chapter had found its proper ending, not in the severing of ties or the simplistic restoration of what was lost, but in the complex creation of something entirely new. Something built on the foundation of respect, autonomy, and the wisdom that only comes from healing our deepest wounds together. 1 year to the day since I discovered my financial apps had been simplified without my consent, I stood at a podium in the grand ballroom of the Riverdale Community Center. Before me sat over 200 women of varying ages, all gathered for the Thompson Family Foundation's inaugural conference, Financial Dignity Across Generations. The journey from that moment of violation to this celebration of empowerment felt both impossibly long and surprisingly swift. As I surveyed the audience, some taking notes, others nodding in recognition of shared experiences, I felt a sense of completion that transcended my personal vindication. Financial autonomy isn't just about money, I began. It's about having the freedom to make your own choices, even imperfect ones. It's about maintaining your dignity as you age. And sometimes, it's about setting boundaries with the people you love most. In the front row sat Ryan and Elise, now expecting their first child, a daughter they planned to name Marceline after my late husband. Beside them, Amanda with Daniel and his daughters, Emma and Lily, who had gradually warmed to me over months of careful relationship building. The Thompson Family Foundation emerged from conflict, I continued transparently. My children and I went through a painful period of estrangement when boundaries were crossed, but we found a way to transform that pain into purpose. I gestured to the side of the stage, where Barbara stood waiting for her turn to speak. And we discovered we weren't alone. So many women have experienced similar challenges to their financial agency, from well-meaning family members, from financial institutions, from a society that often dismisses older women's competence. The foundation had flourished beyond our expectations. What began as a compromise between complete disinheritance and traditional inheritance had evolved into a vital community resource. Our programs now operated in 3 counties, with plans for statewide expansion. Most gratifying was watching the growth in my children. Ryan had discovered unexpected fulfillment in nonprofit governance, leveraging his tech expertise to create innovative outreach platforms. Amanda had transformed her financial practice, becoming an advocate for client autonomy alongside optimization, frequently citing our family experience, anonymously, in professional presentations. After my speech, as attendees mingled during the reception, Jackson Pierce approached with a distinguished-looking woman I didn't recognize. "Sophia, I'd like you to meet Catherine Reynolds, chairperson of the National Coalition for Elder Financial Dignity. Catherine, this is Sophia Thompson." "It's an honor," Catherine said, shaking my hand warmly. "Your foundation's work has caught the attention of our board. We're interested in discussing a potential partnership." The conversation that followed opened yet another unexpected door, the possibility of elevating our local initiatives to the national stage. By the time Catherine left with promises to arrange a formal meeting, my head was spinning with possibilities. Lloyd found me by the refreshment table, his trademark bow tie particularly festive for the occasion. "Quite a success," he observed. "Hard to believe this all started with a family squabble over some apps." "More than a squabble," I corrected gently. "It was about fundamental respect." "True. But look what you've built from it." He nodded toward Ryan and Amanda, who were deep in conversation with potential donors. Not just reconciliation, but something meaningful. That evening, as the family gathered at my home for a post-conference dinner, I excused myself briefly to Marcus's office, still maintained as a quiet sanctuary. I sat in his chair, running my fingers over the worn leather armrests. "We did it," I whispered to his memory. "We found a way through. A soft knock at the door interrupted my reverie. Amanda stood in the doorway, hesitant. "May I join you?" I nodded, and she settled into the visitor's chair. "I've been meaning to ask," she said, glancing around the preserved space. "Do you ever think about what Dad would make of all this? The foundation? Our journey?" I smiled, touching the drawer, where I kept his letter. "I think he'd be proud, not of how we got here, the conflict, the court battle, but of where we've landed. He always believed in standing up for yourself while leaving room for grace." Amanda nodded thoughtfully. "Daniel asked me something interesting yesterday. He wanted to know if I regretted what happened, the whole financial app situation that started everything." "And what did you tell him?" "That's complicated. I regret hurting you, undermining your autonomy. I regret my arrogance in thinking I knew better." She met my eyes directly. "But I can't entirely regret something that led to so much growth, both personally and in our relationship. Is that terrible?" "No," I said softly. "I understand exactly what you mean. I wouldn't have chosen this path for us, the pain, the estrangement. But I can appreciate where it's brought us." We sat in comfortable silence, the sounds of family conversation drifting from the dining room. "You know," Amanda said finally, "Emma asked me last week if this is what healthy families look like. People who can disagree but still respect each other." I wasn't sure how to answer. "What did you say?" "That healthy doesn't mean perfect or conflict-free. It means having the courage to set boundaries and the wisdom to respect them. It means valuing each person's autonomy while maintaining connection." She smiled faintly. "Basically everything I learned the hard way from you." When we rejoined the others, dinner was being served. Ryan stood to offer a toast. To Mom, whose courage in standing her ground taught us the true meaning of respect. To the foundation, which has already helped hundreds of women claim their financial dignity. And to all of us, for finding a way forward together. As glasses clinked around the table, I looked at the faces of my expanded family, Ryan and Elise, Amanda with Daniel and his daughters, Barbara who had become both colleague and friend, Lloyd who had stood by me through the darkest moments. The inheritance I had once threatened to simplify to $0 had been transformed into something far more valuable than money. My children hadn't lost their financial inheritance. They'd gained something more precious, a legacy of respect, autonomy, and the wisdom to recognize the difference between helping and controlling. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come wrapped in the most painful packages. My financial apps had been simplified without my consent, but in reclaiming my power, I had discovered a complexity of purpose, relationship, and meaning that no app could ever capture. As I raised my glass in response to Ryan's toast, I silently added my own. To boundaries that protect, to consequences that teach, and to the unexpected grace that transforms even our deepest wounds into wisdom. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.